stench of smoke and fear clung to the air, thick and cloying as the humidity of the palace. Outside, the sounds of the siege were a constant, brutal drumbeat, the clang of steel, the shouts of men, the distant thud of collapsing stone. Inside, the grand hall was a mockery of its former self, filled with nervous whispers and the hushed movements of servants. I stood by a half-shattered window, the city a blur of fire and chaos below. This wasn't the life I'd envisioned, trapped in a crumbling palace while my supposed protector, Caesar, danced to her tune. Then he entered, a Roman god striding into our Egyptian ruin. Julius Caesar. Even caked in dust and the grime of battle, his presence was undeniable. A force of nature, really. And trailing in his wake, clinging to his arm like a triumphant vine, was Cleopatra, my sister. Her eyes, usually so calculating, were alight with a sickening adoration as she gazed up at him. She whispered something, a soft, intimate murmur, and he chuckled, a deep, rumbling sound that seemed to vibrate through the very floor. It was a shared world they inhabited, a bubble of power and desire that excluded everyone else, especially me. I watched them, the conqueror and his willing queen, and a cold, hard knot of determination tightened in my gut. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about escaping her shadow, about forging my own path, even if it meant tearing down everything she held dear. No, especially if it did. The air grew heavier, thick with the smell of burning oil and the metallic tang of blood. The distant shouts of the legions were a constant grating presence, a reminder of the knife edge we were all balanced on. Every crash from outside sent a tremor through the very stones of the palace, each one rattling not just the chandeliers, but my teeth. I hugged myself, my silk robe suddenly feeling very flimsy and insufficient against the chill that had nothing to do with the night air. This wasn't the luxurious prison I was used to. This was a war zone, and I was just another piece of furniture caught in the crossfire. Then from the chaos they emerged. Caesar, his face grimed with sweat and soot, but his eyes still held that dangerous glint of power, and beside him, almost practically draped over his arm, was Cleopatra, my sister. Her laughter, a brittle, high-pitched tinkle, somehow cut through the din of the siege. She was playing the part of the fragile queen, leaning on his strength, but I saw the triumphant gleam in her eyes, the possessive curl of her fingers on his arm. He, for his part, looked at her with an intensity that made my stomach churn. It was sickening. They were a tableau of victory, a grotesque picture of the world bending to their will, and I was merely a forgotten shadow in their illuminated narrative. The resentment festered in my chest, a burning coal that refused to be extinguished. They might think they had me trapped, but they underestimated my desire to break free, to carve out my own existence, even if I had to burn this place down around them to do it. I'm Courtney.
And I'm Brandon, and welcome to the Time Travelers Club. So, last time we saw the legendary encounter that would go on to inspire artists, poets, authors, and the world forever. But Cleopatra and Caesar weren't the only ones trapped within the walls as they faced the world together. Third wheeling it for some time was a 14-year-old girl who was quietly thieving. And if we've learned anything with this family, age is just a number. and even a young girl was deadly. I'd say especially a young girl. Because let's be real, I feel like she is way more got her crap together than her kid brother, who's almost the same age. You know, like
Yeah, but it's also different. The way that men and
yeah.
women mature is very different.
Oh, of course, and absolutely, I'm agreeing with that. Plus, the kind of world she's had to live in, that women had to live in during that time.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure she had to grow up quicker. You know,
Mm-hmm.
because the world was not handed to you on a silver platter. A lot of things were handed to you on silver platters, but ultimately, women, even within this culture, even where we see women in this family who can get power, it's not usually through their own right. And even when it is, you have a civil war where you are stuck in the palace. Trying to get in the hots with some 50-year-old guy from another country because they couldn't just accept the fact that you were a woman and knew what the hell you were doing more than a 13-year-old boy. So, with that being said, we have a new player in world politics. Now, someone who is often forgotten about, but really shouldn't be, is Cleopatra's little sister. The family drama knows no bounds here, but furthermore, here's another example of a powerful female looking to establish her own power and seize agency. She is Arsinoe IV, and her involvement in the events surrounding Caesar's arrival and the siege of Alexandria was dynamic and significant, evolving from a royal sibling to a rival queen leading resistance against both Caesar and her sister Cleopatra. She deserves her own episode, and she probably will one day. But for today, we're just going to discuss her in the terms of this siege. And I think it's important because if you look at like the siege, right, a lot of times this whole thing's glossed over, right? Or it's
Mm-hmm.
painted as a conflict between Cleopatra and her brother alone. But as we are about to learn, nothing in history is that black and white.
Mm-hmm.
So, while mainstream history tends to paint this whole thing, as we just said, as Caesar being a simple man just trying to help a family dispute, and he just happened to get dragged into it. We know that's not true, but whatever. We have to question why he was so comfortable in getting involved in the first place. And Arsinoe's story proves that it wasn't just Ptolemy or his greedy, ambitious advisors who were upset. If anything, we should consider that she, her brother, and these important officials were just trying to prevent an aggressive Roman takeover and reestablish Egypt's own sovereignty.
At the time of Caesar's arrival in 48 BCE, Arsinoe was in Alexandria, likely under a degree of constraint within the royal palace alongside her brother, Ptolemy XIII, and other members of the royal family. Caesar, upon arriving and declaring his support for Cleopatra, essentially held the Ptolemaic siblings as pawns in his political maneuvering. So, political prisoners. However,
Right.
Arsinoe, described by some historical accounts as ambitious and spirited, was not content to remain under Caesar's control. With the aid of her tutor, Ganymedes, a eunuch who proved to be a shrewd and capable strategist, she managed to escape the palace. This escape was a pivotal moment, allowing her to become a focal point for anti Caesar and anti Cleopatra sentiment. So, Arsinoe was enthusiastically proclaimed queen by the Egyptian soldiers afterwards. They likely saw her as the legitimate Ptolemaic royal who was not aligned with the Roman general, unlike Cleopatra. She rallied the Egyptian army, estimated around 20,000 men, which further cements the idea that rather than being the product of scheming men, in fact had popular support. They began to besiege Caesar and his small Roman contingent within the royal palace quarter of Alexandria. Arsinoe's royal status and her defiance of Caesar galvanized the Egyptian forces, injecting renewed vigor into their efforts to dislodge the Romans. She became a symbol of Egyptian sovereignty against foreign influence.
So let's pause here for a minute because, like last time, I think it's just really important to know where everyone is because it can get real confusing real quick, which is, a little crazy because we're talking about just like one city and one siege, but there's a lot of players here.
Yes.
Last time we talked about we had like 4 ones that we were really concerned with. Achilles, military commander for Ptolemy the 13th, right? You had Cleopatra originally on the outside with Achilles there, but then had managed to find her way in clearly, right? So she's inside the walls now with Caesar, who is inside the walls. And also still inside the walls is Ptolemy the 13th. Now, he had been issuing commands at the time with the help of his advisor. But Julius Caesar caught on to that real quick after a while and killed him because you can't kill a kid, can't kill the king, but you can kill his stupid you kill him, and that's going to disrupt communication. Enter now our 5th player, well, 6th if you include her friend there, Ganymedes, Arsinoe. Arsinoe and Ganymedes were inside the palace, but now have managed to find their way out. So they are now outside with Achilles, right? Here's why it's important. We already discussed there's this disruption of communication, right? And if you're in a war, right, where you've got this guy who's telling you, I speak for the king, but the king's nowhere to be found, eventually that can be problematic, right?
Very.
Especially if things start not going well for you, or if things drag out, like, I don't know, almost a year. So how do we know this guy's really speaking for the king? Maybe he's just some rebel and like the king really is with Caesar and we're all going to get killed, blah, 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 right? Like those are the things that can absolutely start being talked about, right? So to Achilles' delight, you have Arsinoe, who acts as essentially a representative of the royal family. And she can absolutely confirm, no, Cleopatra is the one at fault here. My brother's trapped in there, and this is outrageous, right? And again, we know that we can marry siblings, right? She absolutely would be positioning herself as the replacement for Cleopatra here, and no one would bat an eye to that. If anything, this is perfect. It's like we can get rid of Cleo and we have a replacement for her right there. Perfect,
2 birds, 1 stone.
So yeah. So as of right now, Ptolemy the 13th, Julius Caesar, and Cleopatra are inside the royal palace. Arsinoe, her advisor Ganymedes, and Ptolemy the 13th's advisor Achilles are outside the walls, and that is where we are. So, Arsinoe relied heavily on the counsel and military expertise of her tutor Ganymedes. Initially, the Egyptian army was under the command of Achilles, one of Ptolemy's key advisors, who had orchestrated Pompey's murder. But you can't have 2 military head honchos, especially when they have different loyalties, right?
Agreed.
Right. So there was a power struggle that erupted between the 2 of them for loyalty of the Egyptian army. Arsinoe, likely at Ganymedes' urging, recognized Achilles' potential for treachery. Yeah, and to be fair, I mean, he did kill Pompey. Yeah. But, and therefore, she just decided we need to slim down. We have a lot of unnecessary positions here. She went through Doge.
I'm sorry, your job
her.
has been taken.
Your job has been terminated, and therefore you are terminated. Goodbye. And she executed him. So now you have one military commander again. Hooray! And he just happens to be loyal to Zlu. Hooray!
Huzzah.
So the system works.
The system works.
This decisive act demonstrated Arsinue's authority and consolidated power in the hands of those aligned with her. With Achilles gone, dead, he has left the company. That's an email. So Achilles has left the company. It was, amicable. We both understood.
His employment has been
They sent
terminated
an
and he no
email.
longer represents us.
They sent an email. So, so Ganymedes, who sent said email, effectively became the commander of the Egyptian forces because who else is going to do it, right? We've established that. But this time he's operating under Arsinue's royal banner, which, I mean, Arsinue, Ptolemy the 13th, to the common guy, they're like same person. Just change in management. Don't ask questions. Also, but again, with the benefit of the actual person who we're supposed to be fighting for is here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good,
Yep.
And honestly, this works better because you're like, well, now let's go save my brother. You know what I'm saying? It just looks better. The optics are better.
The optics are very much better, although the fact that she was able to sneak her way out of the palace, but he wasn't, that also kind of gives more of like the side eye to him, though.
Well, I mean, think of it this. Yes and no, because again, history cares about penises.
True.
Do you think that, especially Romans, do you think that, I mean, granted, Cleopatra, and we'll see this a little later, would definitely have been keeping an eye on their little sister. Hello, look where she is. Mm-hmm. It's Cleopatra. But like the Romans, weirdly enough, don't literally get the hint in front of them and realize, oh, this isn't Rome. Women can absolutely be just as cunning and absolutely take power if need be. Even though we ourselves are currently intervening for said woman and have done so in the past, but whatever, right? Whatever. They don't learn their lesson. And I can absolutely believe that they definitely didn't think that this 14-year-old girl was a threat.
Oh, absolutely not.
And they were wrong. So the fact that they allowed her access to Ganymedes, her tutor, which we all know tutors just mean advisors at this point for these people, like, I mean, come on. So, and yes, there's some points like where sometimes they try to paint this as like she was just this like girl and it was her tutor, just like Ptolemy the 13th, like the conniving tutor. And I'm like, no, I think they collabed for sure. I don't think she came up with these ideas on her own. She's 14. But like at the same time, again, imagine being a 14-year-old girl and your big sister's doing all this crap and like you want some agency and there's a precedent for it.
Yep.
She wants some too. And you see it later when she's a grown-ass adult. So under Arsinue and Ganymedes' leadership, the Egyptian forces employed various tactics to pressure Caesar's troops. They continued and intensified the siege of the royal quarter, attempting to starve out or overwhelm the Romans. For a time, Arsinue and Ganymedes' efforts were successful in containing Caesar's forces, and they even inflicted some casualties, which, I mean, how embarrassing. Think about this. You got Caesar, he's like 50, right?
Yeah, being outdone
and he's getting
by
his
a 14-year-old.
14-year-old girl. Like, it's bad enough to be a 14-year-old, but like in their eyes, a 14-year-old girl.
Like, I love it.
Or if you want to give a man credit, the guy with no balls that works for her.
Damn.
Either way, it's not a good look.
No.
This is not me saying that those people absolutely couldn't be brilliant, because they can be. But I got from their cultural standpoint, and honestly, to many today, not a good look. And I will say, if nothing else, I would assume neither one of these people have tons of experience with warfare, especially when comparing themselves to Caesar, who just spent the last 20, 30 years doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's kind of embarrassing. So Caesar himself was now in a perilous situation, facing a determined enemy and dwindling supplies. Under Arsinoe's leadership, the Egyptians enjoyed some success against the Romans. The Egyptians trapped Caesar in a section of the city by building walls to close him off from the streets where he couldn't get access to fresh water. In a siege, that's bad news bears.
Very much so.
Very, 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 very bad news bears. Okay. This is where I think Cleopatra came to help him out a bit. Okay. Because I just don't think he would know. Caesar countered this measure by digging wells into the porous limestone beneath the city that contained fresh water. She would know where that is, or at least know the person who knows where that is, right?
Yep.
Otherwise he's just punching holes and guessing. This, though, only partially alleviated the situation, so he then sent ships out along the coast to search for more fresh water there. Caesar realized that he would need to break out of the city and hoped to do so by gaining control of the harbor. He launched an attack to seize control of the lighthouse of Alexandria, as we discussed last time, but Arsinoe's forces drove him back. Recognizing his imminent defeat, Caesar removed his armor and purple cloak so that he could swim to safety to the nearby Roman ship. Let's take a moment to.
Damn. She made a Caesar swim. Damn.
He had to take off the purple for her. He had to take off his armor to survive.
Damn.
That had to have been a blow to that ego. This 50-something-year-old commander, or 40, whatever he was, old guy, old, middle-aged guy, right? Commander, whose culture held men at that age as the pinnacle of great, bested by a teenage girl.
Yeah, she was using his testicles as a speed bag. Just saying.
I love it. We love this from her.
We do.
We're on Cleo's side, okay? Cleo hasn't made a ton of appearances here, but man, we love strong women. And, we love a moment where you take one of the most the most mythologized and when we think masculinity and the epitome of historical men, Caesar, especially in the West anyway, is right there. You got Caesar.
Oh,
and then
absolutely.
the list varies after that. But on all of the lists, it's Caesar, right? And we don't hear too much about that story. And I wish we did.
I wonder why.
Yeah. Maybe that's why he panic burned those ships.
Recognizing the stalemate and perhaps facing internal pressures or a desire for resolution, the Egyptian leadership under Arsinoe's authority at one point proposed an exchange. Arsinoe for her brother Ptolemy XIII, who this entire time was still in Caesar's custody. Caesar, despite the risk of releasing Ptolemy, who was also an enemy, saw a strategic advantage in removing Arsinoe, a more capable and determined leader, from the equation. Although it seems like everyone is more capable and determined than
I was
our
just
Ptolemy
thinking
XIII.
and I was just thinking damn Ptolemy. He even thinks a 14-year-old girl is a bigger threat than you.
No, it's vicious. It's vicious. Oh,
I love it. He's he's so your sister's a badass bitch. And she honestly, I'd rather them have you than her.
And that point right there, it's just God damn. And actually having that is a compliment from a Roman. That is a
Well, yeah.
super big fucking compliment from a
And
Roman.
something else that just it popped in my head. If she was just a symbol, right? Like some people try to write her that off almost like, well, she was 14, you know? And you're like, she could have just been, and okay, fair. We've seen that in history, right?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, not in this family. Have you seen this family? But
Yeah,
second of
absolutely
all,
not.
the women in this family. Second of all, if that were the case, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why trade? You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
then it's like, if they're both equally figureheads, you would be giving them a bigger asset because in this world, dicks are better than vaginas.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like, so like if that were truly, no, to me, this speaks to she had to have had some kind of cunning or at least enough, right, to be better than the boy, which still does not speak well to the boy here. But like, but
No,
like,
and the thing is,
because
like,
like,
it seems like
not,
everybody's ahead of him,
yeah, like,
regardless
no,
of
no.
gender or age.
Which no trash on Arsinoe. I am pointing out she's a 14-year-old. I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
say girl because that doesn't matter. But like she's a kind of in the society because but I think in this case it's fine because she's probably being educated on the same level.
Oh yeah.
But and that's not common in the world at that time. But like here, I'll say they're about even footing when it comes to that. So with that being said, she's still 14.
Mm-hmm.
14, guys. I couldn't even I had to be in charge of like my brother to get him ready for school. And that was ridiculous. You know, like an entire nation of getting people to do what you want. I couldn't even
Getting
get
people
this
to
kid
do
to
what
get
you
out of
want,
bed.
getting people to
I
do
couldn't
what
even
you
get,
want, having people kill for you.
yeah. So like that's crazy.
It's
And like,
nuts.
and she's doing it well.
Mm-hmm. And
So
that's
I think,
huge.
and this subtly speaks to that.
It really does. So, like, really, like we've been saying, take that in. A 14-year-old girl had been such a threat and challenge that he was willing to give up the legitimate ruler he had hostage in exchange to get her off the board.
Mm-hmm.
That speaks volumes.
Mm-hmm.
But surprising no one, despite the exchange, Ptolemy the 13th did not sue for peace upon his release because who could have predicted a preteen boy who had been raised to believe that they were a god destined to rule, who was then just been humiliated for months and essentially
I was gonna say
grounded.
grounded. I was just thinking he had been put in timeout,
He's been put in
and he
time. He's
told him,
grounded by
and he
some
and
old guy that doesn't even go here.
well, the thing is, it's like imagine kids, right? You put
Mm-hmm.
your kid into timeout, right? He's
Mm-hmm.
moody, crappy, right? The whole point of it is eventually in that timeout, he'll realize what he's done, or at least regret it enough to apologize, right?
Mm-hmm. Not this kid.
That's how it sticks. That's how it sticks. That's not what happened here. Like
Mm-hmm.
essentially, mom came in. Well, like I guess someone came in and said, "Hey, you can't put him in timeout. You need to let him out." And then he goes, "Fine. Now I'm going to let you out timeout. You promise to be good."
No.
Yeah, yeah.
No, but
Mm.
he got grounded by the old guy
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't even go here, that's
That doesn't even go. He got
dating.
grounded by the babysitter
He did. By the old
that
guy
he didn't even want.
that, yeah, that's dating his
Dated
sister,
sister.
who was also the guy banging his wife in front of everyone.
Yeah,
You
well,
know, he,
supposedly, technically, we don't know, but either way, it's still gross. This guy who's banging your sister. That's like it
yeah,
kind of gives me like 90s like sitcom vibes where like the parents are out and
a
like your
little bit.
sister's supposed to be watching you, and then like your sister invites the boyfriend in through the back
Oh my
door,
God, it does though. I
and
didn't
then like
even
the
think
boyfriend
about
has
that.
the
It really
audacity to tell you what
does.
to do.
Oh my God, that's
Like, oh,
hilarious. But you, like, who could have thought that this vengeful little shit would make great decisions and want to end the conflict?
right. I mean, clearly he's different. He's a different stock. Like, he's not a child. He's the God King.
He's a god king.
Exception.
but instead he resumed the war against Caesar. However, without the strategic acumen of Ganymedes and the unifying figure of Arsinoe, the Egyptian forces were ultimately outmatched by Caesar's veteran legions and the arrival of Roman reinforcements.
And this is why he did it. I don't think he was surprised. If anything, I think he was banking on this kid doing that, right? But he knew that this kid wouldn't be able to keep it together.
Oh, absolutely not. Because this kid is
Yeah.
so freaking prideful. He had
Plus,
his advisors push some, like, literally
yeah.
prop him up so far that all
Mm-hmm.
it takes is a gust of wind to make this kid fall.
Well, and the thing is two of those advisors are dead.
Exactly.
So, like, and the one other advisor there isn't loyal to him. He's the one who had sent the email out about Aquila's sudden departure from the company. You know, like,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
So it's like, of course he's not going to be loyal, you know? And it's just like, yeah, I find that, yeah, it makes sense.
Honestly, it was more of a battle of the handlers, in my
But
opinion.
again, bravo to Arsinoe.
Absolutely.
Bravo.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. But this battle, the Battle of the Nile, 47 BCE, this battle was the decisive engagement that ended the Alexandrian War and secured Cleopatra VII's position on the throne of Egypt with Roman support. Julius Caesar, with a relatively small Roman force, had been besieged in the royal palace quarter of Alexandria for months by the forces of Ptolemy XIII and his sister, Arsinoe IV. They were cut off and facing dwindling supplies. Caesar had this whole time sent out urgent requests for reinforcements. Finally, an allied army primarily composed of troops from Pergamum, Syria, and Judea, led by Mithridates of Pergamum and Antipater of Idumaean. Antipater, no father.
No, he's the anti-daddy. The opposite daddy.
The
I don't
opposite
know what that.
daddy.
I don't know
I just,
why.
I just want to call him the no father.
I just want to. I guess. I wonder why he got that name. You know,
Oh
and
my
like
gosh.
I don't know what that means. I guess culturally, but
I
it
don't
is
know.
interesting
Like,
to know.
I have to wonder if he committed patricide.
I don't know, but like
Oh.
I do have to say, interesting enough. He is the father of Herod the Great. So if you're a
Mm-hmm.
Bible fan, you'll know who that is. Like,
Yep.
mm,
But
so
this
that's that Herod.
Antipater is also
Yeah.
in there. But they had these troops, they marched them overland to relieve Caesar. Ptolemy
Mm-hmm.
XIII, having been released by Caesar, a strategic gamble by Caesar that backfired, took direct command of the main Egyptian army. He positioned his forces in a strong defensive position along a branch of the Nile River to intercept Mithridates' approaching relief army before it could link up with Caesar. Caesar, learning of Mithridates' proximity, left a small garrison in Alexandria and moved by sea to rendezvous with his allies. So he's moving around. He's going the
But
river route.
this is a gamble
Oh,
because he's
absolutely.
still, yeah, because he has a small force. They're barely and again we've discussed not being replenished. So
Mm-hmm.
like at what you even have, like there's nothing left to split. It's like you're yikes. So essentially,
Yep.
you are leaving just a skeleton crew behind to make it look like people are there.
It's a shell. It's literally like
Yeah,
creating a shell company. He left a shell company there.
yeah.
So they successfully joined forces. Caesar joined the forces with Mithridates and Antipater. The Egyptian army, likely numbering around 20,000, had established a fortified camp on a hill near the Nile. Their position was protected by the river, and they also had a fleet of ships in the river to support them and cover their flanks.
Ooh.
Caesar now had a combined force of also roughly 20,000, advancing towards the Egyptian position. To reach the Egyptian camp, they first had to cross a tributary or branch of the Nile. Ptolemy had sent detachments of cavalry and light infantry to defend this crossing. But Caesar, ever the veteran over here, he employed a
Mm-hmm.
clever tactic. He sent his veteran Gallic and Germanic cavalry to ford the river undetected upstream,
Ooh.
while the main Roman army began to build makeshift bridges and engage the Egyptian defenders at the crossing. So they're over there building, and that's the distraction. And he's just like,
Mm-hmm.
shh, go wade in the water and get him.
Mm-hmm. Well, like, and you got to give this guy credit. He knows, like, he's kind of got like this mixed cultural army, right? Like they all wear the
Mm-hmm.
same uniform, but under the uniform, these are people from very different backgrounds, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so you have to think about Germany, the Gallic region, right? There are a lot of rivers, swamps, things like that. And if when you look at the Germanic peoples and things like that, they're kind of like a special forces a lot of times because they grow up in these like warrior cultures.
Yep.
So they they're good at this kind of like covert operation stuff like you'll see in other battles like where they're scaling walls or climbing cliffs and like all like they're like these weird like Navy SEALs. I mean, but of course if you see them coming, no, but it's for sure. That's why they're
Mm-hmm.
hired a lot as mercenary groups too.
Oh,
Granted, there's the
absolutely.
problem of don't get twisted. The Romans still think they're better than these people, but but they do see their use.
Oh,
Um,
always.
and and Julius Caesar in particular isn't being a complete snob about it, right? You do see Roman generals who are snobs and then they lose, but he's not being a snob about it, and he
No, he's using it to
recognizes
his
talent.
advantage. That's the
Yeah,
great part. He's actually using their skills to his advantage
but
versus
that
being an
yeah, but
ass.
this only works if they don't see them coming. So
Yes.
you have to throw a distraction. And Romans are very good at one thing in particular
Building.
across the board, building shit quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the Egyptians will know this. So even if it's not either way, it's a win-win for him. If the sneak attack doesn't work, they at least they built some defenses. But if it does work, again, it distracted them. So either way, he's got to do it. But he's going to
Mm-hmm.
raise as much of a commotion as possible to keep their eyes like it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. This whole thing, it was smoke and mirrors when he left Alexandria because he knew they would be too focused on Mithridates' much bigger force, and like
They would
he
leave
took
them
that
alone for a
opportunity.
minute. Absolutely.
And then and the couple eyes that were on there were just they'd be looking back essentially at the palace core like, oh yep, they're still there. They're not looking
Mm-hmm.
at the ocean because why
Of
would
course
anyone be
not.
there, right?
No, because he burned the docks. If you remember, like, he burned the docks a while back.
Yeah,
And
right,
so they're not thinking that there's anything useful that can be launched out of there anymore.
right.
Um,
He's
but
very good with terrain, so
yes,
he wily.
he wily. But, while the Romans are building these makeshift bridges and the Egyptians are like attacking the makeshift bridges and everything like that because they think that that is the core of the forces,
Mm-hmm.
the Gallic and Germanic cavalry burst into the Egyptian rear and flank. The surprise attack from the rear caused panic and disarray among the Egyptian forces at the river. I mean, think about it. You're attacking from the
Yeah,
front, you're being up front, and somebody's like, haha, bitch, gotcha. Like,
well, right. I mean, like it's a jump scare for sure, but like think about it this way: you're a soldier, right? You're keeping your eyes on these people, across the way who are doing what the hell are they even doing over there? Building and all of a sudden you hear some screams from behind you, and you turn around, and all of a sudden there's these
mm-hmm.
crazy white people. They don't like us.
You crazy white people. Yes. Yes.
Scary, and like you're like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Like you panic, and even if you're seasoned, even if you're hardened, that's probably going to happen. And what really in these like old stories, when you see like if they manage to pull through, it's because the whoever's in charge and was able to get his people to recover quickly. It's like, okay, come on, like get back in. Can't let or whatever.
Can't let it scatter
But
you.
like,
Can't let it like distract
right,
you.
or
No, and
so,
that happens. That happens.
but you don't have an experienced leader here,
Nope.
and your troops aren't that experienced either.
Nope.
So like,
Because
even if he has
they're
the
not
numbers,
veterans. They're not, well, there are some veterans, but they're not
I'm
as
sure, yeah,
many. They're not
yeah, and
as many.
again, right, and like, even though they've been battling for a while in the Civil War ish, like these couple battles, like outside the city, it's been mostly guerrilla bullcrap. And
Mm-hmm.
like, you have to remember, Caesar's people have been at it for like years. So like, it's and they have survived so much. Nothing's going to catch them off guard at this point.
No, because they've been trained for everything. They have survived
Yeah,
because they have been trained for everything. But
and not that Julius Caesar. I just want to throw this out there.
mm-hmm.
Julius Caesar is cited a lot as, and you see Napoleon, Washington, all these people, right? Military genius is a word thrown around a lot. I'm not saying he's not per se. I think that just doesn't do justice, and I'm not, this is not me stroking Caesar's ego. He does that plenty on his own.
He doesn't need
Um,
extra.
it's less that he's a military, like, great. He is, but I don't think that it's that simple. I think what he's actually good at is reading a room very
Yes.
quickly.
He's good at adapting his
And that,
forces.
well, not just that, exactly what I meant. Because
Mm-hmm.
in politics, he does the same thing. In social situations, the same thing. He's
Yep.
good at literally looking around, reading the room, and figuring out very quickly in his head what he needs to do. Right?
Absolutely.
There's not like a ton of stories, at least then, where in this story anyway, where he's like had time to really plan it. It's all been thinking on your feet, thinking on your feet, thinking on your feet. Even when he crosses the Rubicon in Italy, and the whole Civil War starts over there. To be fair, it could go either way, and he has to make a split-second decision and just does it.
Yeah.
He's very good at making a decision and then figuring out what to do with it once he's made it.
Absolutely.
It's very in the moment. It's not like he spends months pre-planning crap.
Well, no, because then you get stuck in this decision, like analysis paralysis, as we hear all the time, because you come up with what if, and it's just like, hold on, all the what ifs you can tackle in the moment because you don't know which one's going to come out.
And like, on that same vein, like I just said, Washington kind of has the same kind of like legend. Really, he didn't win a ton. What he actually was very good at was retreating.
Mm-hmm.
And
hey, a strategic retreat is great.
Well, right. I mean, like, to like macho people, that sounds lame, but like, think of it this way. We just talked about that. You know how hard it is to get people under control when they're panicked?
Really hard.
So like, I would say, but like, if you think about Washington in general, like outside of being a general, he's very good at creating an aura of calm, right? I'm not mythologizing the man. He had his issues, but I will say that's a talent. And I think that like when you have all these people fighting, in a courtroom, he calms everybody down, like, simmer the fuck down. He's very good at that on the battlefield, hence why he can do good retreats. He's actually kind of a negative man, but like, I will say he's very good at that. And so I think when we say people are military geniuses, it doesn't really, that's not the genius. You have to look a little harder.
Yeah,
And
you have to look in all aspects. And honestly, I think people that are seen as like military geniuses, the phrase that comes to mind is jack of all trades, master of none. Oftentimes better than a master of one. If you're able to switch those masks and you're able to get out of one mode and go into another mode, lickety split, you are going to go a hell of a lot farther than somebody that is like, we are all on the offensive and cannot get into defensive, cannot get into retreat, cannot do anything else because they are so stuck in that one mode.
And the thing is like, I don't think Julius Caesar's, you don't see tons of stories where he's had to retreat. So I don't think that would be his talent. And vice versa with Washington. But like, And I don't think Washington was like super charismatic. I don't think that was like his people liked him, but not because he was charismatic, but because he made everyone feel calm.
Yeah.
Don't panic. And I don't think that was Caesar's talent, clearly, when you get stabbed. But like,
Well, the thing is, obviously, it kind of is because he gets people to listen to him no matter what.
well, people,
Now,
yes and no.
of course, there are going to be those dissenters. There are going to be those that have the will to do so. But if we
Actually,
are looking at the majority of humanity, what do you need in order to get them to do what you need them to do? You need absolute confidence, and you
mm-hmm.
need to be able to have them attached to you in a sense.
Well, what I mean by Julius Caesar, I would say he did not inspire calm. If anything, he loved stirring a pot. However, like I said, he was very good typically of reacting on his feet, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think at the end there, and we're getting way too ahead, but he kind of doesn't listen to that. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what ends up being his end. But like I would say, no, he was a very polarizing figure. Washington was the exact opposite.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. Not everyone loved him, but everyone did actually respect him. And I think part of that was because he didn't come off as a threat.
Mm-hmm.
Julius Caesar came off as a threat and he encouraged that.
Well,
Very
yeah, but it's
different
also different time
approaches.
periods. Different time periods as
Well,
well,
yeah, but you
because
have people.
power, it,
Yeah.
the difference between power being won through diplomacy and power being won through force. And we are in the time period of power being won through force. Washington
Well,
had
you
to
have
play
that.
the game a little bit different because that was still in the time period of power being won through diplomacy. Now, in order to get through the diplomacy or get through to the diplomacy, you had to use force, but they
That's
considered themselves reasonable men.
and that's valid. I just meant more like as far. I mean, true, because I don't think Washington would be successful in Julius Caesar's time period.
Oh, absolutely
I would
not.
say Julius Caesar was. I will say Julius Caesar probably would have been just as successful in Washington's time period because Napoleon, very similar vibes, very good at reading a room, very good at reacting on his feet and taking
Mm-hmm.
advantage of the moment, sometimes to the detriment of others, also very polarizing, hence his end. But at least he didn't get stabbed. But like,
I mean, he died of arsenic poisoning in the wallpaper. I don't know
and
if that's any better.
well, it's like, was it the arsenic? Was he poisoned? Was it just the rot because he was on this cold ass island with no heat?
I
Yeah.
mean, who knows? Who knows?
Mm.
But we
But
have gone way off topic. So
yeah,
we are
we
getting
ended
back.
up from
We are
we
in
ended
the
up
Nile. We are
yeah.
fighting Caesar's forces and the Egyptian forces. And we have that Gallic and Germanic cavalry coming behind the Egyptian forces and flanking them. And they are scattering to the wind. They
Wunderbar.
they broke ranks and they fled back towards their main camp because they had no faith in their generals. Let's be real. Caesar pursued them closely. The Egyptian main camp was well fortified, but the Roman assault, buoyed by their initial success and the disorganization of the fleeing Egyptians, was relentless. Accounts suggest that the Romans found and exploited a weak point in the camp's defenses, possibly a less guarded section on the highest part of the hill. The Egyptian resistance collapsed, and from there it was complete chaos. This was not an orderly retreat, but a desperate, every man for himself scramble for survival. Many Egyptian soldiers, including Ptolemy XIII, attempted to escape by reaching boats or swimming across the river. But in their desperation, the Nile would turn into a trap. They were trapped in the ditches around the camp or drowned in the Nile as they tried to reach their ships. All major ancient sources, including Caesar's own writings, I'm not saying that.
Comment. I'll do it.
Do it.
Commentary di bello civelli.
You know what? You made it sound so easy, but I know damn well as soon as I tried to say it, it would not come out that easy. So,
To be fair, I probably didn't say it completely right, but it might be commentary.
I think it
Commentary
is.
di bello civilli. But
But
not good for
Caesar's
never learning
writing
Latin.
and accounts by historians like Dio Cassius and Plutarch agree that Ptolemy XIII drowned in the Nile River. Supposedly, the drowning was not a deliberate act by Caesar's forces directly targeting him, but rather a consequence of the overwhelming chaos and panic of the Egyptian rout. The most common explanation is that he attempted to board a boat to escape across the river, but the vessel became overcrowded with other fleeing soldiers, capsized, or sank under their collective weight. Alternatively, he might have been thrown in the river in the melee or simply overwhelmed while trying to swim. Some accounts suggest that the weight of his royal attire and armor contributed to his inability to swim or stay afloat, pulling him under. This is a common motif in accounts of ancient leaders drowning in battle. Ptolemy XIII was around 14 years old at the time of his death. His youth, and likely limited experience in such a desperate situation, would have further hampered his chances of survival amidst the stampede. Caesar's accounts confirm that Ptolemy XIII's body was later found, identifiable by his golden cuirass, the breastplate, which verified his death. However, if this sounds a little bit sus, you are not alone. It is awfully convenient. And all of the witnesses were aligned politically with the victorious regime. Furthermore, it's not exactly like this is a CSI or something where there's an investigation or a pursuit of justice. If anything, many would see no point in that. Even if he had been murdered, his death had been a product of war.
And so, you know, I want to just kind of point out, like, there's this part about the ditches, and it just got me thinking a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Let's the fun story time about Brandon. If you know me personally, you'll roll your eyes because I'm going to talk about that one time I was in France.
Oh my God, I
this,
remember you telling me about this. Yes.
so this one time when I was in France, I also almost had my Ptolemy the 13th moment. And so I was in Bordeaux, as you do. I'm really not a snob. It sounds like I was in Bordeaux, but I'm really not a snob. Like I'm poor. I could barely afford this. And it was just like a once in a lifetime thing. I'm still in debt to it to this day. Anyway, so I'm in Bordeaux, collecting water samples for my husband because fun fact about him is that he is an environmental scientist. He specifically focuses on aquatics, and at the time he was going to school. And he's a big old nerd, and he loves this kind of crap. So I had thought to myself, well, I'll go collect some water samples to different places I visit, and I'll bring them home. I'll figure out how I'm doing that later, and let him look at them, right? So I so I hear this whole thing about how the Bordeaux River is like one of the richest. It's a freshwater estuary, which is super rare, and it's super duper rich in minerals and things like that. It has tides, like serious tides, because of its proximity to the ocean and all this cool crap. So it's towards the end of our trip there. I tell my we're all splitting off for a bit, and I tell my professor, "Hey, I'm going down to the river to try and get a sample." She's like, "Cool, cool." So by myself, I take it upon myself to try and find the spot. And eventually I get to this forested part, and I go into the woods alone, as you do, but whatever. I did this
In a
several
foreign
times in my trip
country.
over there.
It's
Yeah,
great.
and I do this several times because I'm 6'2" and a man, and I don't know. I think I had no harm come to me. Must be nice. So in hindsight, I always think I'm stupid, but that's beside the point. I'm just in the moment. I'm super excited. So I get to this grassy clearing that goes right up to the edge of the river. I'm like, oh, cool, perfect. So, but there's a little edge that I have to hop down, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
maybe 2 feet, 3 feet. And I hop down, and immediately on what I thought was grass, grass, not reeds, lawn grass. And I immediately sink up to above my knees. Fun fact, quicksand's real, and it just looks a lot like mud, apparently. And yes, as you do struggle, it's like a vacuum, and it's like a suction. So it sucks you down a little bit. So the more you move, if you don't break that suction, you do just go deeper. And that's when it hit me as I look up at the bridge nearby and I see the water line way up in the air that my teacher goes, "Oh, interesting fact about those tides. The river can rise up to like 10 meters a day." And I'm like, damn, I'm going to die here alone because this is low tide. Oh, crap, oh, crap, oh, crap. Long story short, I barely get out. My boot is to this day in that river, well, mud, because it got sucked in. And I was walking around with one boot in my Pokemon Pikachu pajama shorts with paint on them. And the homeless man at the train station, as I was waiting for the rest of my class to show up, even gave me judgmental looks. And I wasn't wearing full body armor, so yeah. And last time I checked, the Nile River, pretty silty. It's kind of their thing. It's the Delta.
Yeah.
It's probably muddy. And even if the river's not very deep, I could see very easily how people could die or trip, and in the panic, people get trampled or whatever.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I'm remembering the first time that you told me this story and you're just like, those were
I
my
know.
favorite pair of boots.
I was so mad. I had the other boot. I did not walk around with one boot. I had a backup pair of like Coach sneakers, which also ridiculous. But I worked at a Coach discount outlet. I got them for like $60, and only because I had I got with an employee discount, so relax. But I took my extra boot and just chucked it in the woods and screamed in rage. Um, so actually, there are
Story.
both boots are still there. And yeah, so and that wouldn't even be the first or last time I almost died there.
But that's a story for another day.
Stay tuned.
Oh my gosh. So Ptolemy the 13th's death marked the definitive end of the Alexandrian War and removed the primary claimant to the throne that opposed Cleopatra. It solidified Cleopatra's position as the de facto ruler of Egypt under Roman patronage, paving the way for her famous reign and her relationship with Caesar. His brief and tumultuous rule, largely influenced by his advisors, came to an abrupt and ignominious end in the waters of the very river that defined his kingdom.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, he died, and he either just like drowned, which is kind of a bummer, but honestly, it could get worse. Like for all we know, he tripped, fell in the mud, and just died.
No, and I think that would be worse. Like if he got
Yeah.
trampled into the mud by his own people, like just pushed further in, like that I think would be worse than drowning in clear water.
Yeah, and honestly, at this point, I hope it was a conspiracy theory and that like he maybe died in battle and got stabbed. So, but
Possibly.
just for his own
You know.
sake. But I probably not. I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, maybe he was killed." I'm like, I don't. I can believe based off of my own personal experience, like I just said, and the fact that he was just this 13-year-old kid. I mean, come on, that sounds
Let's
about
be
right.
real. He is not battle hardened. He is not
Yeah.
somebody who has had any of these experiences. He is
No.
immature as fuck.
This is like his
And
first time.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is his first time encountering any of this. His advisors are not there and they have always been like his little barricade, his protection. He
Yeah.
doesn't have any of that. He is
And
supposedly like leading this charge out there, right? He's doing that. And then they route everything and his stuff is destroyed. What do you think this kid's going to do? He's going
well,
to
I
freak the
mean,
fuck out.
also just from the perspective, it's a different. So, like Julius Caesar, yes, fully expected. He's a commander, so he's probably, if he can help it, not getting into the nitty gritty. But he definitely has some experience because he had to get there somehow, right? You know,
Mm-hmm.
like, but when you look, especially this like Near Eastern culture, right? You see it a lot with Persia and things like that. You do have warrior kings, you know, like Ramesses II,
Mm-hmm.
with Egypt, or you've got Cyrus, or like Darius but like of Persia, but like Cyrus was a warrior before he became a king. Darius
Mm-hmm.
was a warrior before he became a king. Um, and Julius Caesar was a warrior before he became a dictator for a minute. So when you think of it like that, when you were born into it, like that is not your role. You are
Yeah.
a symbol. If you're there at
Mm-hmm.
all, you're just at the top of the hill in your pretty armor, like pretty armor that doesn't actually function well. Um, your cool
Yeah. What is a
clothes,
gold
like
breastplate gonna do for you? What the fuck is a gold breastplate
nothing.
gonna do for you? Gold is a
Right. Like
soft
that's what you
metal.
have
What the hell?
generals for. That's what you have, right. And that's where he failed, because the fact that it was relying on him and a handful of military leaders that he probably didn't
Mm-hmm.
have tons of experience with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, like, so yeah,
Yeah.
bummer for him though. So speaking of bummers, we have another sibling to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
With the defeat of the Egyptian forces, Arsinoe, who had been in Roman captivity, was transported to Rome, where in 46 BC, she was forced to appear in Caesar's triumph. Little fast forward, but just so that we can finish her story, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and she was paraded behind a burning effigy of the Alexandria Lighthouse of Alexandria, which had been the scene of her victory over him. Which I also like to point out could also be a symbol of how he had to burn everything down just to get out of there. But whatever.
Yeah, a little bit.
Um, Arsinoe, along with Juba II, and you're like, who the hell's that? We'll get there. Um,
Okay.
el- elicited sympathy from the crowd. So Juba II is another North African king, because like I said, we kind of fast forward it a little bit so that we can like cover her story. Caesar, after he leaves Egypt, doesn't go back home right away.
Mm-hmm.
He goes and conquers a couple more areas in North Africa, and that's one of those places.
Gotcha.
Juba II, on like Arsinoe, from what I gathered, was not like actively like in like rebellion or anything like that. But he was just like the prince, like the son of the person who was causing the problems, and because
Gotcha.
yeah, and because they didn't have that guy anymore, they took the kid as part of the triumph. So,
Oh, yeah. That
and
is
you
so
see,
unfortunate.
and you see this happen a lot. If the person who in Rome, if the person you were at war with doesn't survive, right, the leader,
Mm-hmm.
then they'll take the family as like the stand-ins instead. This will be important later. Keep that in mind.
Because somebody
Um,
has to die. Damn.
well, they don't die. They don't die, but well, not always. I mean, later on in Roman Empire, there's Starvation Island, but you actually usually they don't. Not only do they not die, they actually get it's like forced retirement. But and we'll see that in a minute. So, despite the custom of strangling prominent prisoners in triumphs when the festivities concluded, I mean, it did happen at this point sometimes, but typically it was Caesar was pressured to spare Arsinoe and granted her sanctuary at the Temple of Artemis in Ephesus. That's the one that's a Roman wonder of the world. That's
Mm-hmm.
in Turkey. Sources say like it's because the people, because I mean I can see this. They're like it's a bad look killing kids,
Yeah, it doesn't matter
especially
what
little
culture
girls.
you're coming from. It doesn't matter what
Yeah.
she did. It will always look bad to kill kids.
Yeah, during these triumphs, they put these big golden chains and shackles on people. Um, and she's a petite little 14-year-old girl. It kind of tugged at people's heartstrings a little bit. This isn't like Vercingetorix, who was like the guy that from like Gaul that Caesar had conquered or whatever, who was a grown ass man. You know, it's a little girl.
This was a baby.
And then Juba, who's like this little kid.
Mm-hmm.
It's sad. It's kind of a bummer. I don't.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I also don't think he ever really had intentions of strangling her, just because that's not his MO. His whole thing is forgiveness. Remember, and you owe him later. That's kind of his MO anyway. Also, this is the point where they kind of leaned away from that. With Vercingetorix, he didn't do that. With there's a couple other people he didn't do that with. Like, it may have been like a custom at one point, but like I don't think he ever planned on it. But there was someone who did want this to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Arsinoe is forced to be a priestess at that temple, which is now in Turkey, right?
Mm-hmm.
Caesar believed her to not be a threat because, I mean, to be fair, he didn't learn his lesson the first time, I guess, but whatever.
Yeah.
But Cleopatra was not pleased, right?
Mm-hmm.
She most definitely want her sister killed, you know?
Yeah.
She remembers because she remembered what trouble her family could bring. She had been at war now with 4 of her closest family members.
Jesus.
Like, yeah, you got if you include the mom.
Mm-hmm.
So you got the mom's sister, her little brother, and then her little sister.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, remember when you had to trade the boy for her because she was whooping your ass? Remember when you had to swim and leave your armor behind? It's in the parade, brother.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like, babe, killing 14-year-old girls is not a good look. Like, it was barely a good look with your brother.
And she's like, I don't care. I do not care.
Like, she's like, you're a dumbass.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. But she didn't realize, because she had been at war with these people, and she herself was proof that a royal in exile can always return and seize power. That's literally what this whole civil war had been about.
Mm-hmm.
And but at this point, she was in debt, and she was forced to be content with this decision, right? Like, beggars can't be choosers. Whatever, we'll deal with it later. Yeah, and she's like, I'll deal with this raggedy bitch later. So, just to wrap it up, Arsinoe IV played a far more active and significant role in the immediate aftermath of Caesar's arrival and the siege of Alexandria than simply being a sidelined royal. She escaped captivity, rallied the Egyptian army, was proclaimed queen, and through her association with Ganymedes, effectively led the resistance against Caesar and her sister for a crucial period. Her ambition and leadership made a formidable adversary, and her story highlights a critical and overlooked aspect to this pivotal moment in history.
So, the dust settled over the ravaged streets of Alexandria, the echoes of siege engines silenced by the decisive victory of Julius Caesar. The young pharaoh, Ptolemy XIII, lay drowned in the muddy embrace of the Nile, his ambitions swallowed by the very land he sought to control. Within the battered, yet still opulent royal palace, a new dawn was breaking, painted in the hues of Roman authority and the sharp, intelligent gaze of a queen reborn. Cleopatra, having arrived in Caesar's presence like a secret unveiled from within a humble sack, now stood on firmer ground than she had in years. The Roman general, captivated by her wit and her regal bearing, had cast his lot with her against her brother. The ensuing conflict, brutal and protracted within the ancient city, had forged a bond between them that transcended mere political expediency. With Ptolemy XIII gone, Caesar, ever the pragmatist, yet still undeniably intrigued by the captivating queen, declared Cleopatra and her other younger brother, another boy pharaoh, Ptolemy XIV, as joint rulers of the Nile's rich kingdom, because that worked so well last time.
Creative. But I mean, to be fair, this is almost literal baby. This is like a 7-year-old.
He's little.
He and like to be fair, all the wily advisors are gone. So
That's true, but the universe hates a void, so it will always fill it with something.
mm,
But
that sounds like an innuendo.
the power dynamic here was starkly clear. The legions of Rome, now garrisoned within Egypt's borders, sounds like a US military base, were a silent testament to where the true authority lie. Cleopatra, indebted to Caesar for her reclaimed throne, understood this implicitly. Her reign, though bearing the facade of joint rule, had begun in earnest, shadowed by the immense power of the Roman Republic and the compelling presence of the man who had restored her. The winter that followed the siege was unlike any Alexandria had witnessed. Julius Caesar, a man whose life-blood was the clash of armies and the intricate dance of Roman politics, lingered in Egypt. He, who had chased Pompey across continents and weathered a brutal siege, seemed content, for a time, to be captivated by the allure of the Nile and its queen. Their days unfolded in a tapestry of intellectual discourse and shared ambition. Caesar, the seasoned statesman, found in Cleopatra a mind that could meet his own, a ruler who understood the delicate balance of power and the enduring legacy of her dynasty. They sailed in majestic barges along the life-giving river, witnessing the ancient wonders of Egypt, discussing its history, its resources, and its strategic importance in the grand scheme of the Roman world. For Caesar, this was not merely a dalliance. It was an immersion into a kingdom he now held sway over, guided by a queen who possessed both beauty and sharp political acumen.
And speaking of voids being filled, within
Goodness!
the, within the gilded chambers of the palace, their intimacy deepened. Do you like that? Did you like that segue?
Oh, I love that segue. It's great.
The clash of wills had softened into a profound connection, a shared understanding that transcended their vastly different worlds. Her alliance with Caesar had not only secured her throne, but also ignited a passionate and politically charged romance that would forever enter. Okay, I read that wrong. Her alliance with Caesar had not only secured her throne, but had also ignited a passionate and politically charged romance that would forever intertwine their destinies. Cleopatra, a woman of formidable intellect and captivating charm, had recognized in Caesar not just a powerful ally, but a man susceptible to her unique allure. I will say this, that is the narrative given.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to kind of go over the narrative given, and then I'm going to put my thoughts in it. Their initial encounter, with the mythical clandestine unveiling from within a rolled carpet, was a bold testament to her audacity and her understanding of the power of spectacle. But their connection ran far deeper than mere theatrics. Cleopatra possessed a sharp mind, fluent in multiple languages, including Caesar's own Latin. She engaged with him in intellectual discourse, discussed history, philosophy, the intricate workings of her ancient kingdom, and she was not just a beautiful queen, but a shrewd diplomat, a keen strategist in her own right, capable of holding her own in the company of the most powerful man in the world. And this is where I just want to say, like the latter part, I agree with, right? The
Yeah.
first part, I do not think she was just some conniving shrew. Okay.
No.
No.
And
What?
I hate the point in history where they're just like, she was a temptress and she was a whore. Just like, are you serious? Are you
The only thing I could
serious?
think of, other than like the patriarchy itself being the issue here,
Mm-hmm. I mean, other than.
it's because Caesar is known for also being brilliant and all these same things, right?
Mm-hmm.
He is just physically a built man. Like, not that I think he's jacked or anything by any means, but like he did fight in battles and things like that. So there's almost like this physical part that tempers, because like, if you're just intellectual and that's all you got to your name, you can even men could be found as being like sneaky sons of bitches, and it
Absolutely. And
might
there's
not
something to
believe
be
it.
said about
And like smart
it.
kings, men, and stuff in history, usually it's tempered with this like martial prowess sort of thing, or like something else that kind of like tempers it, other than just being really politically savvy. The
Yeah.
problem with Cleopatra is that she's a woman, like, and I mean, let's be real, she's not known for being a warrior queen. Okay,
No.
I'm not saying that women couldn't, but she herself is not. All right, so she's
Mhm.
not out there with swords ablazing, despite what Netflix will tell you.
No,
Um,
and I do want to interject here. Here's the thing. We already spoke about her economic policy being like fucking
mhm.
brilliant. So it's not just
Yeah,
intellectual in terms of like philosophy and everything like that.
yeah, it's
Materially,
practical.
she is on top of it. And from
Yeah,
from what I know of Caesar, he didn't quite have that.
no, I mean he kind of does, but he definitely leans. By the time he's implementing that stuff, and we'll talk about that later, she is there with him,
So she's
and you
probably
can't
the one
tell.
pulling that string realistically to
Well, and
actually
I don't
build
even
up
want to
the
say
material
pulling.
wealth.
Yeah, and I don't even want to say pulling string, because that makes it sound like someone being manipulated. I think he goes, hey, like, when they're in Rome, like, hey, you're really experienced with this. What are your thoughts? And she goes, well, I actually experienced a problem similar. This is what happened, and this is how I solved it. And he listened. To me, that's not pulling someone's string. That's being asked for advice, or give, at the very least, giving good advice. And
Yeah.
Romans will make it like, oh, she was manipulating and pulling his strings, and like, so I want to very much separate that. It sounds like he respected her. Okay,
Yes.
now
And that's
I'm
huge.
going. I am going to address the other elephant in the room, the seductress.
Oh,
Okay,
yes. The temptress.
she, and you know what? In Assassin's Creed, they do it too. And I love that
Mm-hmm.
game, but they made her. They made her a hoe there too, and I didn't love that.
I don't think
So
she was out here slinging pussy around everywhere. I don't
he
think
was
that was the case.
no, and I think honestly, she just straight up wasn't, right.
Yeah.
Like, when we're looking at this broadly, right? She is a very astute politician, but then when you actually start pairing off with like her economic reforms and things like that, no, and just her position in general, we know she ain't screwing her like 10-year-old at the time, 10, 11-year-old, 12-year-old brother. Like, just
Mm-hmm.
the logistics of that, even if she was married to him. If she wasn't married to him, then she's just straight up unmarried, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most historians think that she was a virgin when she met him. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Not because there's some, oh, she was a virgin, not like that in that sense, but like just logically,
Yes.
right? So think about that. Before you ever had sex, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even when you were trying to be sexy, were you? You know what I'm
Oh, hell
saying?
no.
Like, we don't know, right? And
You're
honestly,
just awkward. And then you're just like,
right.
oh,
So I
I did.
don't think
Ooh.
that was it. I think she came in super confident, like, I'm a ruler. He's going to see my worth and things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think she went in there like, you know what I got? A pussy. And I'm going to roll out the carpet and show 'em mine. Like, that's not, but that's how she's portrayed. And like,
It is.
no, she, no. She was probably very inexperienced with this. And I think that as they're under siege and stuff, as an older man, he probably made passes at her.
Whether or not she recognized them as passes is honestly, when you're inexperienced, you don't know.
Well, here's the thing. Eventually, she's smart enough. She does recognize it. Now,
I don't know. I don't know. I'm
here's,
I'm gonna play a little bit devil's advocate there. Maybe
well,
she
hear me
knows the
out.
attraction is there, but I don't know.
Well, hear me out, because there's going to be results. So she had to have at some point. But hear me out.
Mm-hmm.
You are Cleopatra, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have made a lot, and I don't think it was from his end either. Like, ooh, I want to tap that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We know that the siege lasted about a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're trapped in a building together, right? Um,
Yeah.
eventually he probably is just horny and making passes. Eventually, I'm assuming she catches on, right?
Mhm.
Here's the thing: if you're in her position, what do? There's a point where I wonder if she, well, we know she has sex with him. How consensual even was this to a point, right? It's not
Yeah.
like, I mean, if she says no, not that I think he's gonna
I
but
don't
like
think
it's
he
gonna
would
cause
force himself on her like that, realistically,
no,
but
no,
there
no,
is
not like
also
that.
such a power play here that if she says no,
Yeah,
realistically, she's having to weigh the options of I could lose my support from him.
yeah. They're at the very least, it's gonna make everything awkward.
Yeah.
And like when you're trying to work together to defend and win, you can't have that.
No.
So and there's a point where I don't, and like maybe she did want it. I don't have her diary. I don't know. But like, this is me playing devil's advocate. Um, I don't necessarily believe that I know it's not, in my opinion, I know it's not how they traditionally portray it. And this
Yeah.
makes a lot more sense based off of people I actually know. And I know this is modern times, but like there are some things that like it just makes sense when you talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Um, so with all of that in mind, yeah, they spent a good year together, and maybe after a while there was attraction and whatever, right? I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to say love. I don't think it was that. Um, but also like even after, if it's consensual, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, consensual as it can be. I mean, yeah, this guy's kind of fun. She's finally free for the first time, able to do her own crap. So even
Mm-hmm.
after the siege is over, why break it off? Um,
I
guy seems pretty
mean,
cool.
it makes
Here's
sense.
the problem. I do want to throw out there that this is Julius Caesar's in his 50s, and she's like 19, 20,
Mm-hmm.
21 at the most. I'm not great with the math here, but yeah, little
That's a
problematic.
difference. A lot of problematic.
But, but even by those times, especially when you are supposed to be peers.
Yes.
Okay, so keep that in mind. But they always portray her as like, and I'm like, you can't have it both ways. Where Caesar is super brilliant, but also easily manipulated,
Yeah.
like Cleopatra. But it's the spell of Cleopatra because she was the only one who could do that, and you're like, okay, like whatever,
Yeah.
fake
It makes
news.
no sense. It's giving her all the power, but none of it at the same time. And it's just like
The
why?
all right, and that's all Roman propaganda, which continued on forever.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, Caesar, a man accustomed to deference of senators and obedience of legions, found himself intrigued, perhaps even challenged, by Cleopatra's independent spirit and her unwavering devotion to Egypt's glory. He saw in her not just a ruler of a vital territory, but a woman who understood the weight of power and its intricacies of government. They shared ambition, their mutual respect for intellect, and undeniable physical attraction that blossomed between them forged a bond that transcended political expediency. Their time together after the siege, the leisurely yet politically significant voyage up the Nile, was a testament to the deepening of their relationship. Away from the immediate pressures of war and statecraft, they explored the ancient wonders of Egypt. Their conversations, weaving through history and their personal connection, grow stronger with each passing day. For Cleopatra, this was more than just an affair with a powerful Roman. It was a strategic alliance on the most intimate level, a way to secure the future of her dynasty and elevate Egypt's standing in the Roman world. Because again, the longer she keeps him here, right,
Mm-hmm.
and builds that bond. Like again, it's going to make it sound like she's manipulative, but like again, if you're a diplomat or a social savvy person, like it makes sense, right?
It
The more
does.
time you spend
Yeah.
someone, the harder it's going to be for them to, kind of fuck you over,
Yeah.
you know, like build your case. make him see like, hey, because it's going to be a lot harder for him to come and conquer if he gets to know the people and has like a bond,
Exactly.
Maybe it's a little manipulative, but I don't think it's like a malicious it
There's
just, I feel
difference.
like
There's
anyone would
definitely a
do it.
difference.
Yeah.
So, in the warmth of the Egyptian sun, a child was conceived, a son named Ptolemy Caesar, whom the Alexandrians would call Caesarion. Little unfortunate. Little Caesar. Cleopatra made no secret of his parentage, a bold declaration that intertwined the lineage of the Ptolemies with that of the most powerful man in Rome. Though Caesar would never formally recognize the boy as his heir under Roman law, the very acknowledgement of his name spoke volumes of the unique bond that he shared with the Egyptian queen. Caesarion became a living symbol of their union, a potential bridge between two great civilizations. Yet, the affairs of Rome, ever tumultuous, could not be ignored indefinitely. Caesar's loyal second in command, Mark Antony, was, shall we say, struggling with the burden of leadership. The echoes of the Civil War still reverberated across the empire, and new threats demanded Caesar's attention. By the spring of 47 BCE, the call of duty, the ingrained drive for conquest and consolidation, pulled him away from the Nile's embrace. He departed Alexandria, leaving Cleopatra as the undisputed ruler of Egypt, her throne secured by Roman might and their shared legacy now embodied in their infant son. Cleopatra, though, perhaps saddened by his departure, understood the nature of power and the vast responsibilities that Caesar carried. She was now the sole architect of Egypt's destiny, a queen wielding her authority under the watchful gaze of Rome, her future inextricably linked to the man who had arrived as a conqueror but had lingered as a lover and ally. Her reign had begun in earnest, a new chapter in Egypt's long history, written with the indelible ink of Roman influence and the enduring memory of Julius Caesar.
And for now, this is where we will leave things. Caesar, fighting abroad, and then returning to Rome, and Cleopatra, more secure than she had ever been. Even after Caesar's departure, the impact of their romance lingered. Cleopatra ruled Egypt with a profound new confidence, secure in this knowledge of her powerful ally and the bond they shared. She understood the complexities of Roman politics and the ever-shifting tides of power, and her relationship with Caesar had provided her with invaluable insight. She nurtured their son, Caesarion, as a future ruler, instilling in him a sense of his Roman heritage, alongside his Egyptian birthright. Next time, we will discuss her time with Caesar after Caesar's departure, and her own trip to Rome, just in time to witness one of the most well-known events in Western history. If you like what you heard today, please give us a 5-star review on whatever and all platforms you listen to this podcast on. It goes a long way for us to appease the algorithm gods, and it gets this suggested to others just like you. The more we can connect to our fellow history nerds, the more we can build up a community and keep this show going.
Also, we have a Patreon where you can hang out with us and get exclusive content, like videocasts where we might try to make some ancient recipes, talk about topics that couldn't fit into the main arcs of the podcast, and just generally being batshit and dumpster fires, all for the price of a latte per month. Research materials and books cost a lot of money, y'all, and it takes a lot of time to create this show, so anything that you can provide would be a huge help.
If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions for the podcast, you can always reach us at thetimetravelersclub@gmail.com. And as always, thanks for listening. Bye for now.
Bye, guys.